Welcome to The Kid is in School, where we talk about whatever we want since our kid is not here to interrupt us. But we don't have a lot of time before the bell rings, so let's get right into it.
You read the weirdest books. Like, you've got another one. What is it called? It's
Yeah, I have one question for you. Who moved my cheese?
Who Moved My Cheese?
Have you heard this title before, right?
I don't know that I have.
Okay, I have definitely heard it for years. It's kind of like the concept of golden parachute. I always knew it as I probably saw it advertised on Good Morning America years ago. So I do find books for free in these lending libraries in our Brooklyn neighborhood, and I'm always intrigued by them, especially if it rings a bell, like it makes me think of, oh, I've always heard about this. I want to see what this is about finally.
But it's never like, oh, I've heard of War and Peace. I'll read that. It's a classic. It's
always... every now and then I'll bring one like that home, but I just never touch them. I have like so many classics. You know why? Because I'll go, oh, this is really deep and I should read this on a day when I have nothing else to think about. And then I go, you can find it at the library. It's a classic. And then I give it away.
Okay. Yeah,
so the classics do not last long with me.
It isn't. It's always not F. Scott Fitzgerald. It's Dr. Phil.
Yeah, it's self-help books. Especially, you say Dr. Phil, but it's also, I found one by an exercise guru from the 90s. No, from the early 2000s. I had never heard of her before, but she had a whole gym studio named after her. I forget her name, but it was all about how she discovered Pilates in her 40s and she wanted to find purpose outside of whatever work she was doing. It was so fascinating to me because it was like a little time capsule of what it was like to be middle-aged in the 2000s.
I guess, but I mean, first of all, when you say she discovered Pilates, do you mean like she learned how to do it, or she discovered it like the way that people discover new land in the
She
1400s?
Did not invent the technique, no. She didn't discover it that way. She just got hip to it, and she had always heard about it, but never really tried it. But to me, I don't know. I don't know if I can explain to you how interesting it is to me when someone finds a hobby and then makes it their career. And then writes a book about it. Then it's like, but in present day, you're like, what was this? I never heard of this. You know what comes to mind is I just heard about, there was a woman who was trending for a while in the 70s teaching people how to speed read. Do you remember that? And then I saw an old Leno set where he referenced her. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this was really a thing. Evelyn someone.
I do not know what you're talking about. Speed reading. I've heard of speed reading, but I don't remember any courses about speed reading.
I don't either.
An infomercial about that. No, I don't know.
Right. It doesn't serve anyone today, but at the time it was trendy. I love fads. That's what I love. I love fads. Intellectual fads are funny to me.
Well, that's part of capitalism, is to get a trend and a fad, ride that, make as much money off of these things.
Capitalize on it.
Yes, capitalize on it. And sometimes it's a created demand. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what an infomercial is.
Yeah, I love infomercials.
Yes, you do. You like as seen on TV products.
I watch them all the way through, top to bottom.
They're there to create a demand that didn't exist before, and an interest in something that nobody cared about at all.
I love how I'm almost their target audience because I will sit and watch the whole thing, but I just won't pull the trigger on buying it because I don't like to spend money on that kind of stuff. So I will watch from the 80s the woman that makes she used to hawk a lot of George Foreman grill type items, so like things that you plug in that sit on your countertop that cook food for you in different ways. And one of them in particular was this little grill that forms things into triangles. And my grandma used to have it.
Like sandwiches, you mean?
I guess so. You could do it with a grilled cheese, but then she would say you could do it with pie crust and apple filling and make your own pies. Or she would say do it with pizza dough and fill it with sauce and cheese. Now you've made pizzas, but it's just a Hot Pocket machine, essentially. And it would make sandwiches. So my grandma had one in the 80s or 90s, and so now I watch these infomercials, and it's just so fascinating to me. She didn't invent the thing. She just hawks it.
Yeah, well, that's what a lot of the infomercial people are. I actually saw there's these casting call type of emails that occasionally I would get and people in the business get. So I got one that was for QVC host. Mm-hmm. And essentially they're just like, you have to be energetic, be able to essentially be a salesperson.
You're a salesperson.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of it. You can't possibly believe in the product because it's brand new. You've never heard of it before. And you just have to talk about it.
I think that's what a really good salesperson is the product is inconsequential to them. Mm-hmm. It's the sale that they're passionate about.
It reminds me of like forensics in high school or something, or school debate where they'll just say, make an argument for this, eraser here, or this rock. Hold up
Yeah.
this rock and tell us why we need to buy it. And it's just, it's teaching you how to be a little salesperson.
Persuasion.
Yes.
The Art of Persuasion, which is probably a book you'll find on the street.
Yes, I can't wait. That sounds familiar to me, and now I must read it. So anyway, let me tell you about Who Moved My Cheese.
Okay.
Because I always thought, first of all, I thought it was about, I think about mice, and I think about cheese, and I thought, okay, rat race. Maybe it's about corporate America.
It's like an improv game of you trying to figure out what the title means before you open the book.
It is. It's a mini challenge to myself. How close was I? So there are mice involved in this, but it's not. It's a parable, not a biblical one, but a modern day parable about accepting change. That's the overall thing. So the cheese in this scenario is anything you want out of life. The maze is your actual day-to-day routine or your commute. And the characters involved in the parable, there's 4 of them. 2 are mice and 2 are quote-unquote little people, which I found offensive. Because they mean as imaginary people the size of mice. They don't mean the actual term little people.
Okay.
And, but whatever, it was made in the 90s. And it's about how every day these 4 individuals go to the same cheese and it nourishes them and it fulfills them. But one day the cheese is just gone. So all 4 characters, 2 mice and 2 people, have to figure out what they're going to do with themselves. The 2 mice re-strategize immediately. They go out and look for new cheese, and they find new cheese right away. The 2 people, I won't spoil it for you.
Well, I can only imagine that somehow the mice are the smart ones. The human beings the size of mice are dumb and have all of the foibles that a human, a normal size, not the size of a mouse, a
However,
3-inch man.
No, you're close. They do react differently. The mice choose one thing and the people choose another. But what you need to understand is people are more complex. Their bigger brains get in the way. They start having fear overcome actual guts, like, oh, what if I'm worried? What if I never find it? Well, then I better stick here and see if the cheese comes back. So it's an example of how we can overthink things, how it will behoove you in your life to anticipate change. If you start to notice little changes, instead of being so comfortable in your rut or so fearful of leaving your rut, start to look for things. And it makes people reflect on their life. And I definitely reflected on mine of when change was hard for me, and it is always, when could I have adjusted? Did I see the signs earlier? Yes. Usually there's writing on the wall in any kind of transition because life is always changing.
I guess so. I mean, the first thing I thought about with change is I pictured the book being in our house and it changing by us flinging it out the window.
Yep. It's a very thin book, though. That's the other thing that appealed to me. It's a really short read. I'm actually technically not done with it. I've got 2 pages to go, but I felt like I get what this is about.
It's only 12 pages long.
I get this, and I close the book, and I haven't been back.
Yeah.
No, I got to finish those last few pages to see what else I'm missing. But I got the gist. And yeah, like the author says, it did make me think. But this is the problem with modern philosophies. Everything makes you think, but does it really serve you? That's up to you to decide.
I mean, isn't technically our brain always thinking, regardless
I don't know about yours.
whether you're conscious or not conscious? Otherwise, you're just brain dead. There's no activity happening.
Oh, we're being very literal. Yes,
Yes.
your brain is constantly functioning.
Yes. So is it really necessary to have a book about cheese and, parables about overthinking things?
Well, this is my problem with comedian merch. At the end of each show, a comedian would be smart to sell something that endears them to the audience. It gives the audience something, a nice souvenir to leave with. I get it on principle, but when it comes to okay, Abby, what's your merch going to be? I go, I don't know. Who cares about another t-shirt? And I don't have a quippy phrase, so suddenly I start judging anything that could ever be done. But Who Moved My Cheese is just somebody's idea, and they said, well, maybe I'll turn it into a book.
There is that concept of, there's the overthinking that can happen with perfectionists, where they let perfect or great get in the way of good. They're not willing to...
Good enough.
Well, I would say that's good enough as an addition that somebody that's
a
perfectionist puts.
I thought you were trying to quote somebody that you've heard before. So your own phrase is, don't let
I don't think
perfect
the quote
get in the way of good.
I don't think it's good enough, but maybe it is. I guess I can be corrected.
Well, we just heard it different ways. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go on.
No, it's fine. But I think that's kind of a funny thing, that there's a distinction between us where you're good enough. And I say, something can be good and it doesn't have to be good enough. Like good enough indicates to me there's judgment there.
Oh.
That like, well, it's not really good, but it's good enough to like exist.
Maybe so, but I thought if you just leave it at good, then a perfectionist can say, well, it's not good. It's crap. You know what I mean? I thought good enough is I think a qualifier in there so that you can go, all right, you don't have to, it's not going to be the greatest, but it's enough. Just the word enough, I guess, is. So it's not really supposed to be a judgment in my opinion, but I see what you mean.
Yeah, well, maybe it's a different way of looking at this world. And maybe there are people who need the books like Who Moved My Cheese, and there's some people who just want to eat the cheese. They don't even want to read a book about it.
Some people see the word cheese and go, you know what, you're right, book. I'm going to go make a sandwich right now, and then they walk away from the book.
I'm going to use one of those 90s griddle things that makes a triangular hot pocket of cheese.
You know, if you use 2 layers of book and you put inside some hot mustard, you can make yourself a little
and
book
you can
sandwich.
Because Who Moved My Cheese is as thin as a single slice of bread.
It's a very thin book. Wait, I want to say one more thing though about this. Even though you've tied it up with a beautiful bow, I am or have been in the past a perfectionist. Have you ever felt like you were a perfectionist?
Boy, I don't know exactly how we're defining perfectionist because so I'm able to look at something and go, oh, there's room for improvement for sure.
But do you let that stop you from actually following through on a task?
Well, no, and I think part of it was because I was, as a kid, I'm just trying to think back. I was not a perfectionist as a kid in elementary school, particularly elementary school, but all the way through high school. Anything where there are assignments that have to be handed up to the front of the class whenever homework is due. Because I did not want to do the work at all. I didn't like homework. I didn't think it was necessary. I would not do it. But you get in trouble if you're not doing your homework. Teachers get upset. You get detention.
Right.
You lose recess privileges.
So you put in a
bad
minimal
grades.
effort just to evade those consequences.
Right. And most of that was on the school bus to school or walking to school. If I walked to school, I would get there ahead of time and then try to do it really quick before class started.
Well, so you and I both procrastinate, but I do it because of perfectionism. What do you do it out of? Obligation, I guess? You're like, I better do some version of this.
I just explained it. Like, you get in trouble if you don't do it. So I know, even though I found no value in the homework, it's something where if I don't do it, I know what the consequences are, which is a failing grade for not turning something in. And so even turning something in that got me a C or a B on something, it's not an A, which I am capable of doing, but I didn't really care. I didn't really care about what the other person's opinion was, the teacher's opinion of whether I was smart or not.
Right. Well, what I like about that is that you're not judging yourself in the process, because I think that comes with the perfectionist thing is like you have to, you're constantly evaluating yourself. And 2, you're not really looking for praise or approval from the teacher. You're just looking to for being acceptable. You're looking for good enough. Is this good enough? Good.
I'm looking
done.
to avoid consequences.
And avoid consequences. Now, what you just said, you were capable of the A's. Did you get A's at some point, and that's how you knew you were capable of them?
Oh, I got A's all throughout. Like sometimes, so tests, I was a very good test taker because I learned the material and I learned it in class. That's what, homework is kind of a silly thing in general. Like kids shouldn't have to have a ton of homework to figure out something. You should be able to learn something in class being taught by teachers. And if you want to be able to round out your experience, maybe dive a little deeper, that's where I think homework would come in, not just repeating the same thing over again. I think
homework dates back to keeping kids out of trouble. So it would either keep them off drugs, it would just keep them busy so they weren't picking pockets at bus stations.
I have no idea.
This is, Newsies. I'm picturing like the Newsies era boys.
What are these?
And only boys.
The Bowery Boys type of era we're talking about again?
It's Little House on the Prairie.
Yes.
It wasn't enough to just be in the one schoolroom. You have to go home and do more work.
You somehow have memories of the 1990s and the 1890s.
Yeah, but it's all made up. You do not trust my judgment. Like if I ever had to do a period piece, it would be all over the map. They'd be like, what's happening in this?
Yes.
It
wouldn't be perfect.
Yeah, back to you saying homework is bunk. Actually, before you were even saying, and you've opened my eyes to this philosophy, because now you and I both have a kid that is getting homework, and I never fought the man. I don't challenge authority. You buck authority when it's not necessary. you stand up to me when I'm just like asking a preference, and you're like, I'll get to it when I get to it, and I'm like, all right, never mind then.
I don't think that happens.
I know, I'm just painting a very cartoonish picture of you because that's amusing to me. But anyway, so I'm just trying to say that you're very, what do you call it? What are you? You're nonconformist, and you're also what? Disestablishmentarianism? Is that the word?
I don't think that's a word.
It is actually a word, but I don't think I'm using it right. Disestablishmentarianism. Do you remember that?
Wow, I'm not aware.
In
I
third
guess I
grade,
should have done my homework.
In third grade, a boy said, "Do you know the longest word in the English language?" Yeah. He said that word to me, and I thought it was supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and I fought him on that. Yeah,
well, I forgot about supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, but then Dick Van Dyke was on The Masked Singer.
No spoilers, please.
Ugh,
it's not a spoiler.
You would have seen it on Twitter by this time, if you're on Twitter still.
I loved seeing Dick Van Dyke. Did you like seeing him there?
It's cool because I like the idea of being able to do what you're passionate about until you no longer roam this earth. And so he's 97. He's still able to go out and perform, go out and put on a show. I mean, obviously he's moving slower than he would have at any point in his life because he's 97. But it's cool to see that. And also it puts in perspective, he's 97 now. So when he was doing television shows in the 90s, he was almost 70 at that point.
Yeah. I don't know what's 60s. Cooler, to keep doing it until you croak, or to be like Sean Connery and, there's one more person that comes to mind. Sean Connery and who else retired early? Cary Grant, and saying, you know what, if I can't do it the way I like to do it, I'm not doing it anymore. And then they just did something else with the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I wonder when Cary Grant, when he retired, because people just looked older back in the 50s and 60s. Like they were
smoking cigarettes.
They're smoking cigarettes. Well, he didn't like.
They were drinking highballs at noon.
Well, he didn't even just look like craggly old. It just, the way that men would dress in that era was suit, tie, very groomed hair, Brill cream, and very clean shaven. And so by the time but they looked like that when they were 25.
They were just ready for their funeral at any time.
Yeah.
They were like, you know what? The mortician doesn't have to do much with me. I'm pretty much set.
Right. It's kind of like Mad Men, where we see he's of that era. So he would be, the Don Draper character would probably be somewhere around Cary Grant's age. And so then seeing like the hippie kids and him interact with them, it's like he can't quite wrap his mind around.
Why would you let your hair get shaggy?
Yes, why would you look like this and do that? So, but they wouldn't have been old. Like Cary Grant in let's see, North by Northwest, which came out in maybe the 54 or something like that.
Oh, really? I thought it was the 60s.
Maybe. Alfred Hitchcock's, but Psycho was 1960, I think. So okay. I would guess mid 50s, but it could have been up in the 60s, but I don't think it was after Psycho.
It's in color, and Psycho's in black and white.
On purpose.
Okay.
Like it was a choice.
Here we go again with the Mighty Mouse.
Yes.
When I don't know that black and white is optional.
Yes.
I think it's mandatory.
I know. When did you think Schindler's List was made?
By the way, our daughter, she was like, this is old. This is from the 80s. It's when everything was black and white. And I go, like, we could all see in color back when I was a kid, right? It wasn't just because you've seen this television. And she wasn't sure. She's only 5, guys, but still, she wasn't sure that people couldn't just all see in black and white until a certain time.
I'm not even sure why she would think the 80s in black and white, because nothing was in black and white in the 80s.
No, it wasn't, but 80s seems ancient to her.
So just...
Me being a kid is like dinosaur times, prehistoric.
Just old. She associates black and white and old, and those things are synonymous.
Yeah, which you did too as a child, I'm sure. You've just forgotten about that.
I don't know. I mean...
It's kid logic.
The thing is about black and white films is they don't seem of an era to me. They seem separate. They seem outside of that. So watching The Maltese Falcon, if you said, what year does this take place in, or Casablanca, I don't know. I mean, I know the storyline. and so I know when they would be taking place. But
I'm frowning at you.
yes, the Maltese Falcon and Chinatown are probably like basically the same year.
You mean do you mean they take place?
Take place in the same year. They're not filmed in the same year.
Right.
They're filmed 30 years apart.
Right. Okay, so you don't have
and so would LA Confidential. Like
right.
they're all of that same era.
Takes place in the same era, but also filmed in different styles. Yeah, for me, it's all about style. So for example, Metropolis is black and white. It's also a silent film. It looks ancient to me because nobody's talking. It also looks very foreign. Is it a German film?
Metropolis might be a German film, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, so when you're talking about LA Confidential and Chinatown and Maltese Falcon, to me, they all have very distinct styles. So I don't get confused about when they're supposed to take place. You got to look at the hat. If the hats are all the same, then you know it's supposed to be.
Well, I know that it's of the 40s, but watching LA Confidential and also watching Double Indemnity, like do those they're the same time period, but I don't think I wouldn't think that is the same year these things are taking place. They have distinctive styles, but the black and white films seem outside of time to me.
Interesting.
They seem.
I didn't know this about you, so I have to chew on that.
Yeah.
Before I can agree with it. But I think that's cool that it's outside of time for you. It reminds me of something that bothers me, which is if hair and makeup and wardrobe don't get on board with the era. So, for example, and it's just very anachronistic. If they can't all be in the same time period, it takes me out of it. So Dirty Dancing is a great film, but it was made in the 80s and it looks made in the 80s because everybody's haircut is in the 80s. Now, their clothing is in the 60s. And that bothered me. But you know what? I don't want to get into any beef with a 70-year-old hair and makeup person that I'm going to work with them, I'm sure, at some point.
They
also listen to my podcast.
I know. What's the dancing movie with Kevin Bacon?
Footloose.
Okay. Now, does that take place just in a small town in the 80s, or is it taking place in the 50s?
No idea.
I don't know.
That's exactly my point.
His haircut is definitely 80s. But
his pants are 50s.
Yes, I don't know.
It's confusing.
And some of these movies too, I haven't seen them in such a long time that I don't know. I can't remember enough about them. So maybe if I saw them now, I'd go, "Oh, okay, this feels very..."
And I think if you work in wardrobe, when somebody was, in the 80s, 60s clothes were making a comeback. So it was like we had capri pants, but you probably know more about what you're talking about. Why that is.
I guess if you're making a film today, if you made it about teenagers today, there would be some stylistic choices that look very much like the early 2000s or some in 90s
80s too. Yeah, for real. And I think in the 2010s and the 2020s, anything goes. Like retro thrift shops have everything.
And I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I really dislike some of the pant choices in today's youth.
What are they doing wrong?
There's it's kind of the baggy but high water. A lot of high water right now.
High water plus baggy, wide leg and it's exposing ankles.
Yes.
Okay.
And a lot of times it looks like it's just been cut off by scissors.
Oh,
so
wow.
it's a little frayed jean.
Meet the Flintstones.
Yes. I don't like it. I'll be the old man on get off my lawn moment with those. Get those pants off my lawn.
It's weird. When you see something enough, maybe it starts to seem cool, but you're really not supposed to know what cool is anymore. Everybody has their own sense of style and aesthetic. But
I'm Cary Grant looking at the hippies.
Yeah.
With that. I'm like, why would anyone ever do that? You should wear skinny jeans.
Anyway, if I worked for BuzzFeed, I would make an article about which movies that were period pieces got the wardrobe matched with the hair and which ones are stuck in the year that they were actually made.
Yeah, well, I guess
it'd be a good one, wouldn't it? That'd be a good article.
Yeah, well, it's not any worse than the ones that already exist, so it's good enough.
That feels like a burn on me and BuzzFeed.
That is one time where I could say that's good enough.
I want to talk about, speaking of children's clothing, my problem with buying clothes for our kid, and this is something I heard about ahead of time before I even became a parent, is that kids grow out of clothes quickly. Here's the problem. They cost money. If kids' clothes were free and then they grew out of them, you'd be like, oh, well, that doesn't fit anymore. Get rid of it. But because you don't want to have to spend another $20 on shoes, you're cramming their foot in going, Is it really that uncomfortable?
You do sound like you're from like the 1800s here. Where you're like, another $20 on shoes. That's a fortune.
That's outrageous. It's outrageous. Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
These are clearly not baby Jordans that we're talking about.
No, I prefer to pay. You know, if you go into TJ Maxx, which is considered, I don't know, a reasonably priced store, new shoes by Vans or Skechers are going to be $19.99, and that's considered a discount because at Foot Locker they'd be probably $39.99 or something. But either way, both of those are too much to pay. Don't you want to pay $5 for kids' shoes?
I don't know.
They're the size; they're so small.
I feel like we've got, at least our daughter has, a wide range of shoes. Some that we've found in the neighborhood, some that are given to us by family members or friends.
Yes.
And then the ones that we have bought.
Right.
And certainly there are some that I don't know where we've bought them, Target or something like that. It's little slip-on Vans looking shoes. They're not Vans, but they're
canvas shoes that you slip on.
And those don't last very long. She ends up getting toe worn out. The rubber underneath is worn through.
Yes.
It's very quickly. Then there's like somebody gave us some Jordans. Mm-hmm. And those never wore out. In fact, so much so that I was like, oh, she outgrew these already and they look brand new.
I know,
what are we
it's hard.
supposed to do? Oh, I don't want to get rid of these.
Because you like to beat your shoes to heck. And so do kids. Kids, like, she will hop like a frog, you know, scurry like a bunny, and just do everything with her feet in the span of one city block.
Yeah.
So she's just like tap dancing and then cartwheels, you know, and then... And me, I'm just walking regularly. I took 27 steps total. My shoes will last another 5 years, but hers are done by the end of the trip.
No, she does that thing which all kids seem to do, which is if she's riding the scooter, she'll drag the toe of the other
as brakes,
as the foot. Yeah, like drag. And so I know I did that when I had a scooter when I was a kid. Just dragging my foot.
You still do something. I don't know why you go through shoes so fast. What is your deal with shoes?
I didn't want to correct you, but you are absolutely incorrect with your assessment of my shoe stuff.
Explain.
First of all, it's New York City. So you walk a lot more than you do everywhere else in the country. So you're wearing through shoes more like that. But I also have 10 different pairs of sneakers that I will wear and cycle through. And you don't realize when I bought these. So you're like, I can't believe you went through this shoe already. And it's like, I bought those 3 years ago and those are my everyday walking around shoes.
But my shoes last 5 years and look brand new. I should have been a cat burglar because I don't know, I walk very gently in this town. Like my shoes just don't get torn up. And I put them in the washing machine, which you don't. You refuse to wash yours.
No, you got hand wash shoes. Nice shoes.
Well, either way, I keep my shoes clean, and you just wear them until they're done. I don't see you taking care of your shoes.
That is incorrect.
One time you've cleaned my shoes for me. I caught you cleaning my shoes, but I never.
No, I have the shoe eraser. I do that. Like, you are looking at the everyday walk around shoes. You're not looking at the performance shoes. If you go out and look at those are in nice condition, very good. They've well maintained,
right.
And I've had them for quite a while.
And you know what? You surprised me because you wear them to the venue. When I have my quote unquote performance shoes, those are audition shoes. I only bust them out for the audition. So even if I'm going into the city, they'll be in a backpack. Then I pop them on for the audition. Then I put them back in my backpack.
No, I'm not all about carrying more stuff. I've already got enough stuff to carry around.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah. So
back to kid clothes.
Yeah. Somehow this became about my shoes.
I'm fascinated by you.
You were incorrect about.
Well, yeah. My idea of you, I guess, is different from your idea of you. But
well, because I have 100% of the information, and you have only what you observe when it sticks out to you.
Well, here's what I'll say about you and your daughter. You only have 2 feet on your body, so you only need 1 pair of shoes per person. I don't know why you have more than 1 pair of shoes.
That is incorrect. That is so... You have to have the shoes that match the outfit if they're performance shoes, but also if they're just walk-around shoes, those wear out quickly. So I have different shoes for different types of activity too. I have basketball shoes that I only wear on the basketball court. Mm-hmm. I have powerlifting shoes I only do when I'm heavy lifting at the gym. Mm-hmm. I've got running shoes.
You got your thinking shoes for when you need to sit and have a think.
I'm always thinking, so every pair of shoes is a thinking shoe. So
you got your sloppy Joe eating shoes for when you want to have a sloppy Joe.
Yeah, the same way you wouldn't go to a construction site
you're like
with
me
open-toe sandals.
Yeah, I get it, but you're like me with lotions. I've got a skincare cream for every part of my body, down to the cuticles. I have a cuticle cream, and you're just like, what is the point?
Yes, that's because none of that makes sense. what I do makes sense.
Well,
and I'm not even like one of those shoe guys. Like I don't collect shoes and keep them in boxes and resell them and make them an investment. I just have shoes that I like to wear.
Yeah, I know this about you. You think of yourself as somebody who uses the shoes you own and that you don't own too many because you're not one of those weird guys that keeps them in boxes. But I'm the same way with nail polish. I have thousands of bottles of nail polish that I use, but you would say it's excessive. That's too much.
No, we're just not going to see eye to eye on this one. You're incorrect about your assessment, but
I think I've given somebody a heart attack at home. It's not thousands like 5,000. It's more like 2,500.
Of nail
Just so
polish.
you know.
Yes. That's a lot of nail polish.
It fits nicely into 2 metal cabinets and 20 shoe boxes in my closet.
By the way, it's not 2 metal cabinets. That's 4.
Oh, yeah. There are 4 filing cabinets from IKEA if you wanted to picture it, everybody.
Yeah, because they're each stacked on top of each other. So
yeah, I hoard, but in a very secret, private way. In a way that doesn't disrupt my lifestyle.
Yes, that you only talk about in public, on stage, and on a podcast. Very private.
You said you have to match your shoes to your clothes. I cannot match our kids' clothes to save my life. And this is another gripe I have about kids' clothes. Like, Target will give you a cute little watermelon t-shirt and a watermelon pair of pants. But if you try to match that with anything else you have, your outer space pants, for example, your Mickey Mouse pants, it's not going to work. And I hate that about kids' clothes.
Yeah,
Make them coordinate, people.
I think that you just got to go with color. You just go based on color, so then you can match it a little bit easier. Rather than it has to be, if it's space pants, then it has to have an alien on the shirt. Nah, I don't care about that.
You're very good at that. I will give you props because I don't know how you make her wardrobe work, but every time you go in there, you pull out 2 things that match. Every time I go in there, it's like she looks like Punky Brewster. I can't make anything match at all. It's neons with pastels. It's, fall colors with summer hots. I'm like, what the heck is going on?
You gotta go conceptual, where it is something like space pants, alien shirt, or you got to go color based, and it's like the space pants go great with the Mickey Mouse.
Because they both have teal in them.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. You're good at that. But I even told her to dress herself because I didn't want to think about it. And she came out with heart pants. And I was like, great, good choice of pants. And then a shirt with a planet on it, but it's a nightgown. And I was like, oh, it's fun, but it's a nightgown. And she was like, but patterns. So I'm like, I don't know. Do you have my gifts or do you have his gifts? I can't tell.
It sounds like she's got the worst of both. She did.
She gives up. She's like, I can't please any of you people.
I know. But I don't know what you expect when you tell a 5-year-old to go in and dress herself.
I know. She's about comfort, which I respect. And this is the other thing. If you get Mickey Mouse on it, now we just are shills for Disneyland. That's the problem. Like, can we buy something that doesn't have a logo on it that's marketing? You know what I mean?
Then you end up
annoying.
You end up looking like the plainest kid ever. It's just a
basic house on the prairie,
basic white T-shirt. You look like what every rapper in the year 2000 was like, just a basic white T-shirt and jeans. I love it.
She's Master P.
A black hat with no logo on it. Just
She's
a complete
swinging a
black
T-shirt
hat.
around her head. Whip it like a helicopter. Who sang that song? You don't know. Come on. That had to be someone from No Limit Productions.
Whip it like a helicopter?
No, swing your head, T-shirt around your head, whip it like a helicopter. North Carolina, come on and raise up. Take your shirt off. That's what it is. Take your shirt off and swing it around your head.
I hope that's the exact lyrics too. Like,
it's different from in St. Louis where it's getting hot in her and you got to take off all your clothes.
Okay, he's from St. Louis. I thought it was
Nelly was from
Okay.
Loop. Welcome to a white man and a black and white woman trying to remember black culture all the way through and just skimming that surface.
Yeah.
It's deep in me, and it's like I have to really work hard to get it out. But it's in there.
You already know that I don't like to do deep dive homework on stuff. I like to just enjoy the moment.
That's what coordinating kids' clothes is to me. It's too much homework. I'll see it on Instagram and go, oh, you have a beautiful burgundy headband on this baby and a burgundy sweatshirt and burgundy sweatpants, and they've got a beautiful gold pattern. And I'm like, that is so coordinated and cute. And then I go home and look for that in my closet, and it's a mustard stained T-shirt with SpongeBob on it. and a pair of leggings from Old Navy with holes in the knees. So I don't know. I don't know what parents are doing that I'm not figuring out.
Well, first of all, they probably fold the laundry. And don't just pull it out of the laundry basket.
He's sitting on top of laundry I refuse to fold at this moment. You are sitting right next to my pile of laundry. Ooh, I'm so mad at you. But you're so right.
No, I know. And that pile there was what you were going to do while we watched Wakanda Forever. That's a 2.5-hour movie, and we got through one pair of underwear being folded.
That's how good the movie was, though. I couldn't fold while I watched it. It was just so good.
You also do that with shows that aren't any good, though, too. You're like, well, Matlock.
I do. There's no denying it. TV is not good for me to micromanage, or what is it called? Multitask. I can't multitask with TV on. I can't do anything but chatter.
Yeah.
You wish I would be quiet during TV.
I know. I wish that was not the multitasking you did, was talking and watching. Instead, you could fold, be quiet, and enjoy the show.
Well, one thing we're both diligent with is helping our kid do her homework. Be that as it may. I wish she didn't have homework.
I know. We need to find a school with no homework.
We need to start a school with no homework. This is why people homeschool. You think it's to protect them from
but then we got to do all the
actual
homework.
Knowledge, but really it's just to make your life easier.
Yeah, no, I don't think homeschooling would do that. Then you are doing the homework. The kid's not doing the homework. The parent is doing all the homework to teach them.
Yeah, it's tough because she and I tried to do her homework with her, and it's just actually extracurricular homework, this particular assignment, but I didn't know that. I thought it was the real deal. So I put a lot of pressure on myself to help her get it done. And I missed the whole point of like, do it or don't do it. So anyway, here's the assignment. It said, make a booklet. And I'm like, great, arts and crafts, I can do that. And it said, create a book that shows greater than, less than. And it's called Guess My Number. So that's all they said. They said, guess my number, greater than, less than. And they gave an example that said 4 and then a greater than sign and then 1. So I don't know what number is greater than 4 and less than 1. I don't know. Anyway, the way I interpreted it was...
There's no number greater than 4 and less than 1.
Okay, then flip it. Less than 4 and greater than 1 is 3, right? 2. Oh, crap. Here we go. I thought I was explaining this simply. So that's the thing. I overcomplicated her homework, and we made the booklet together, but what we decided was each page would have a equation, like 5 and then a greater than or less than symbol, and then another number like 2. And you had to guess which number she was thinking of. So if it's less than 5 and more than 2, it could be 3, it could be 4. And then she put the answers on the back. And you took a look at that because we weren't finished yet. And you go, what is this? This is all wrong. You're just supposed to come up with one number. Why are you giving options? And she and I both go, because it's more interesting that way.
Yes, which makes no sense in a math homework like booklet. It doesn't. You can't just have options. There aren't options. You can't just pick your own answer to math. I mean, there are. That's the thing. So the way you were doing it was, it's unsolvable because it becomes a guessing game. So, for example.
Yeah, a game.
What's greater than 1 but less than 100?
Yeah.
And you go, well, you got 98 numbers that could be.
Right. So guess my number. Is your number 86? No, you guessed wrong. But you lose.
There's a way that you do that. You go, guess a number between 1 and 100. That's how you do that. You don't go find the answer with this equation. So
because it's an equation, you sought an answer and you said, Abby, think about this like you're an actual kindergarten teacher and you just want to teach the basics of greater than, less than. Just give her one number as the answer.
Yeah, because you can't do like what's 1 plus 2 plus another number equals some other number. It's like, well,
that's fun. That's a riddle.
Yeah. Then it's like, well, there's an infinite number of answers to that.
So I approached this with a creative art brain and you approached it with a rational, I don't know, math brain or something. And I just thought it was funny that I deferred to her because she and I were trying to figure it out. And I was like, what is this supposed to mean? She goes, maybe they just have to guess my number and they could be right or wrong. And I was like, that's a great idea. And we went with it. And then you came in here and you were like, no, the child is not in charge. Let me show you both how it's done.
The child doesn't teach the parent how to do something she doesn't know how to do in the first place.
Look, if we were in the Goonies, I would be the adult that lets the kid figure out the riddle, okay? And I would get the treasure.
No, that's...
Or am I sloth in this scenario? I can't tell. I'm gonna need the people to weigh in on this. If my way was acceptable,
I know. Go to social media. We'll put a little poll up on Twitter or something like that.
Yes, I want you to side with me, but I respect your decision either way. If you get that there was a right or wrong and Luke's way was right, but I felt like it was super open ended. Guess my number.
This is the one case where good enough was not good enough. You actually do have to be perfect on this.
Thanks for joining us today. If you had a great time, let us know on social. Follow Kid is in School on Twitter and The Kid is in School on Instagram. Subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. Be sure to throw us one of those 5-star ratings and share with your friends. Oh, and do it quickly before the kid gets home.